Hey folks, welcome back to the top 10 strongest in the Legendary series. We're winding things down a bit as we're reaching the final few typings and indulging in Scarlet and Violet. I'm glad we've made it this far though, as the last thing I would have wanted would have been to do the poison typing super early on and then been dealing with the effects of Toxic this whole time. This is one of the most interesting typings of the last few generations thanks to the fairy types giving them a renewed sense of purpose. So I guess without much else to say, let's take a look at what the poisons have to give us. Today's video, we'll get started with Crobat, a fan favorite that I often gravitate towards with in-game playthroughs and not as much as competitively. But even then, here it is. So what does this speedy boy do? It's a stronger defogger to start, which is always a positive aspect to any Pokemon. Then, it uses Super Fang and Taunt to sort of cripple bulkier teams, preventing any sort of setup or status element moves, and then just cutting 50% of health. You're able to hold the Choice Band if you'd like, running Brave Bird and doing a seriously massive amount of damage. However, don't get it twisted. Crobat is not just a physical attacker. It can use Nasty Plot to boost its special attack, and use moves ranging from Sludge Bomb to Air Cutter and Hurricane. You're pretty much gonna be able to use Crobat in a few different ways with a chance to be successful. It's just not as likely as most of the other Pokemon on the list today. Tentacral checks in right now, seen as a very nice rapid spinner among the poison types. It doesn't just clear hazards though, it also sets them. It's a top tier toxic spike setter. And when we're talking about that in the context of poison types, it's impressive to earn that distinction. It can use knockoff, it can burn with Scald, and of course access to Sludge Bomb means it gets two of its best possible stab moves. There actually isn't too terribly much to say about Tentacruel, I guess. This was incredibly basic. It's better than Crobat, but that's it. And I guess a short entry without much to say is pretty viable for the number 9 spot on a list. I guess it's worth bringing up. It's a little fast and definitely can be a slight special wall. So that's it. Shout out the Tentacruel for just showing up and being solid enough to take up a spot. So, the next two Pokemon are the Nidos, just like on our last list. It's pretty much the same deal, as we'll start with Nidoqueen. This thing isn't the greatest attacker, though it definitely has to means to be pretty decent. Its hidden ability is Sheer Force. It can just take a Life Orb and run moves like Earth Power, Sludge Wave, and Ice Beam. But how about the pretty decent bulk it has? I think it may be better as a defensive Pokemon than as an actual attacker. It's definitely gonna show up as a crippling wall against electric types, that's for sure. Its bulk is pretty decent. The Sheer Force ability gives it some offensive merit, but of course, it's not the best Nido on the block. That title belongs to Nidoking, proving that it's at the top of this hierarchy. This thing is a premier special attacking ground type, running Sheer Force and a Life Orb, as well as pushing out moves like Sludge Bomb and Earth Power for stab, but Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower for coverage. It's got all the coverage you could ever need on a particular Pokemon, especially one with a decent special attack stat. And, well, I guess I could say potentially workable speed, though it's nothing all that special. So, as an attacker, it's definitely one of many rare special attacking ground types, but its lack of good bulk and a very middling speed stat is enough to keep it held back by a lot of other Pokemon of its typings. It was nice to get to talk about a couple of Pokemon in back-to-back videos, which isn't something we do very often in these series. So, shout out to the Nidos for being a couple of very solid Pokemon throughout the generations. We now close out the first 5 with one of my favorite poison-type Pokemon, the Great Roserade. It's carried by just how good it is in BDSP, as it isn't always the best option for Sword and Shield's competitive and really isn't a worthy Pokemon for doubles. However, Roserade is definitely the kind of Pokemon you want to turn to if you're seeking some good setup with hazards. Its speed is base 90, which is frankly pretty decent for the position it is in. And it's not too poor of an attacker either, considering the great base 125 special attack. So you can set up spikes and toxic spikes, and even turn to something like sleep powder to help expedite that situation. Its access to Giga Drain gives it recovery, but it can also just hold some black sludge and then go full power with moves like Sludge Bomb and Leaf Storm instead. That poison grass typing is nice defensively, and you've just got a decent chance to succeed when you run out Roserade as your lead in competitive BDSP matchups. I'm happy that it appeared once again in such a solid spot on this list, and I look forward to using it in future games. We're gonna open up the second half of the list with one of the best psychic types out there, the Galarian form of Slokin. This Phantom of the Opera wannabe is a tremendous wall with some great power behind it. It's got 110 in both special stats and 95 HP, proving it to be a bulky monster that can run an assault vest, as to ensure that virtually no special attacker can have its way with the Hexpert Pokemon. The Regenerator ability is top tier, allowing for recovery when switched out. So you've also got that without having to waste a move slot on something like Slack Off. There's a bunch of moves that Slokin can get, ranging from its Stab, and Psychic, and Sludge Bomb, to absolute badass coverage moves like Flamethrower, Scald, and Ice Beam. It gets all the great stuff that its Jotonian counterpart gets, while getting new and impressive moves that can provide great defense for fairy types, among others. It's crazy to think it's only opening the top 5 today. And I think it sets the tone for the rest of the list, these Pokemon today. These Pokemon today are oddly really good, and the poison typing truly is underrated. We're gonna talk about Gengar now, which obviously just cracked into the top 5 today, despite being the second best ghost type. It kinda makes me wonder if it'll still be that high on the ghost list whenever we start to include the many that end up appearing in Scarlet and Violet. Anyway, Gengar is a particularly fantastic revenge killer, whether you're running Nasty Plot or either the Choice Scarf or Specs. Its stats tell the story of a really speedy dominant special attacker in the most obvious way. Its move pool includes Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Dark Pulse, and Dazzling Gleam. And there are definitely a few other ones too, but those are some of the absolute best. I'm sure some of you are a bit surprised to see Gengar end up behind 3 Pokemon, but the poison typing just has some really versatile Pokemon, unlike the small ghost typing that mostly focuses in on having some nice attacking support. This particular typing has way too much in the way of defensive walling, as you're about to see. Still, Gengar rocks, and that'll probably never change. Starting our top 3 is a Mungus, the true best support wall among all the grass types. But as you'll come to find, it's not exactly the case with the poisons. It's still really damn good though. It's got a fantastic ability to serve as a super wall and support, whether it's in singles or doubles. Let's go over the list of things that make it a great support Pokemon. We'll start with access to Rage Powder that any wall would love to have in doubles. Then of course it's got Regenerator, so healing will be a nice and easy thing to accomplish. Its defenses aren't jump off the page by any means, but in this regard, it's how Mungus uses them that makes all the difference. Being a mushroom, Mungus of course has access to Spore, which is one of the best moves in the franchise, so you can definitely see it excelling using that move as a catalyst towards domination. Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb absolutely play well and are massive threats to fairy types, and of course tons of water type Pokemon. Mungus is just the consummate supporter and is way too good out there in both doubles and singles. Take it from me, there is nothing sus about Mungus here, making it near the top of the list. The penultimate Pokemon of the day is one you've been waiting for, Venusaur. I love this thing. You love this thing. Do I even need to go on? Well, I guess if I talked about it on the grass list, it's only fair to do so here too, so I will go on. Venusaur thrives in the sun with its chlorophyll ability, boosting the base 80 speed it has by quite a bit. When you improve its speed, you can make fantastic usage of its great special stats. When you combine the efforts of Weather Ball in the sun, which becomes an amazing fire-type move with Sludge Bomb and Giga Drain, you've got something pretty unstoppable. That leaves you with coverage, powerful stab, and a great way to heal. Who doesn't love that? You've even got access to the Great Growth move, which sets up Venusaur's attacks. In the sun, there is hardly any Pokemon that is actually better than Venusaur. It's when it's out of the sun that it just isn't as good, which is what capped it out at the number 2 spot. Its Gigantamax setup can make it a bit stronger, which I'd be remiss to leave out. But aside from that, Venusaur is still getting its fair share of the spotlight today. And it's really cool to see that we're awaiting the 9th generation now, and still the first line in the Pokedex is in the conversation of dominance. So, you've probably already guessed the number 1 spot, but allow me to confirm it for you. It's Toxipex. It came in second on the water list, but today, it is the bridesmaid to no one. It is one of the greatest walls in the history of the franchise, offering everything you would ever need. Its insane water poison typing is actually great defensively, even with the ground and psychic weakness. The base 142 special defense and 152 defense enable it to take any hit realistically. It's got access to Regenerator for an ability, and of course Recover as a move, so HP flows through this thing constantly. I mean, it's such an amazing wall with what it has. And its typing and ability and whatnot, they almost banned it from OU altogether. The toxic spikes it'll set up, and the potential to burn with Scald cannot be understated. Toxipex is so damn good, and I'm glad I was able to give it the ultimate rub here today. There are only 18 of these number 1 spots, and it's pretty nice to see yet another new Pokemon take a spot today. That'll do it for another top 10 list. We're down to just 2 more typings, being normal and fairy. I think I want to end with the more interesting typing, so next time we'll do the normal types. There's obviously a lot of good Pokemon there to talk about, so it'll be fun. By the time you're watching this video, we'll all be face deep in Scarlet and Violet, so get back to enjoying that, and thanks for watching. With that, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching the video and for coming through and enjoying Scarlet and Violet with me. We've got so much content coming surrounding Gen 9 through the end of the year and beyond, including the top 10 strongest Pokemon, the best team for the games, and much more. If you're interested in more Mystic content, check out my TikTok and Mystic Umbreon Shorts YouTube channel. When we get to 5,000 subs on the channel, we're gonna have a new series related to Scarlet and Violet that will be exclusive to there, so go subscribe. Also, if you're into fanfictions or Genshin Impact, check out Mystic Reads and Tevotchinary. I offer a ton of creative spoken word content over there, and I do a bunch of theories and lore videos surrounding Genshin Impact. So come join me over there at that floats your boat. That's all for now. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time for more Scarlet and Violet content.